it's a game, and nice guys get washed away like the snow and the rain. There's been a load of compromising on the road to my horizon, but I'm gonna be where the lights are shining on me like a rhinestone cowboy riding out on a horse in a star-spangled rodeo.
Welcome to episode 161 of Cowboy Shit, the podcast. My name is Ted Stovin. He is Dustin Edwards, and we are back. It is season 7. This is episode number 3 already. Guess the year 7 of the show. And Dustin, you've had your home opener with the Roughnecks. Season is started for the Roughnecks. You probably already had another game now too, haven't you?
Nothing at home since. No, we had a bye week. So
You guys had a week off. Okay.
Yep, off to Vancouver this weekend. We actually don't come back to the Dome till February 2nd. We're on the road to Vancouver and Colorado this next couple weeks. So,
But it's kind of wild. You guys have like one game a week, but then that February week, you got 2 home games back to back. That's pretty neat.
yeah, 4 games in February. So we'll be busy at home, and it'll be nice because we'll have played, I think, 5 games on the road and only 1 at home to start the year. So,
Oh, wow.
But I'm not going to lie that this weekend coming up, the 13th, was supposed to be our home slot for January. And we elected to go on the road to Vancouver, which is going to be a lot effing warmer than Calgary this Saturday night. So that's actually turned out to be a genius move when the high is minus 30.
Oh, man. So when you give up a home game like that, are you giving up the potential revenue or what's the deal?
No, you just give up having a game at home in the month of January. But for us, like anything, like any sports, the more games you can have in the spring, the better. So this in turn gives us a later date in April when the weather's nice and things are happening. So normally we would play 1 or 2 games in January. Now we're going 4 in Feb, 2 in March, 2 in April. So from a business standpoint, hoping that yields better fan turnout later in the year.
And so does that mean like the teams in the deep south, like Panther City actually plays at a Dickies Arena, so that's where the Fort Worth Stock Show is. Do they have some more January games, and like the southern states have the January games, so you guys can get out of the cold in the winter, or what?
Yeah, like we've already played in Rochester. We already played in
San Diego.
San Diego, yeah. So we went to San Diego. No, yeah, we went to San Diego for game 2. This weekend's Vancouver, next weekend's Colorado. So yeah, just kind of getting those ones out of the way. And then April we'll play in Georgia, and then we'll play in Saskatchewan. So the road trip to Saskatoon's a lot better April 13th than it would be in the heart of January, like this weekend, for example.
In Calgary. When you're going to Saskatoon with the Roughnecks, are you on a bus, or you guys all fly over there? I'll fly in and meet there.
Most of the players would fly in. Some people would take a bus up. So be a combination of both.
What are you doing? Are you flying or busing?
I'm probably going to be driving there
Yeah.
to avoid both, or maybe fly. But
yeah.
The thing is, the players, none of them live here. They all fly in to the
every week
and that night every week. Yeah.
Wherever they're going, right? And okay, tell us where all you got on the go, because you got like don't you have like a San Diego and or maybe like a Philadelphia? Like you got a couple trips coming up plus Vegas.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be going to Vancouver this weekend. I'm gonna let the weather dictate whether I'm actually gonna leave home this weekend or not. But then we go to Vegas next week, and then string of home games back here February, and then March going to Philly. So I've never been to Philly. Gonna be there for 3 days. There's a basketball game, an NHL game, and our game on in that arena while I'm there. So I'm gonna take in three pro sports games at I think it's the Wells Fargo Center there. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Cool. All right. On.
That's about it for me, man.
Well, and tell everybody how the home opener went. Like, how did it go on your side? How did it all happen?
Oh, it was awesome. You were there, and we had a nice crew there to take it all in. we had a really good crowd. You know, it was our biggest crowd for our home opener in a couple of years. So from that standpoint, the weather was nice. It was a beautiful night, big crowds. I thought it was a really good for my first game. From a fan experience standpoint, I think they were treated to a really good one. We scored 17 goals, which I don't think we scored 17 goals in a game last year. So
really?
the old gold song was pumping, and yeah, I was really happy with it for my first home opener. It was, I'd say, a huge success. So
when they play that goal song 17 times, it kind of makes me think about the rodeo side of things and what we do. And I'm like, geez, I would never want to play a song more than once. But when you have a goal song that goes off 17 times, like I don't think it really got old. Especially when there's the piece to it that there's the action, which I think is kind of cool, where everybody dances along and does the action piece. So I think that's pretty cool. But
yeah, it's the vamonos, and then everybody has the bang, 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 and like I was amazed. I thought I'm like, people got to be sick of this. And there was like a minute left, and we scored the 17th goal, and you got 13,000 people still standing up, shooting their finger pistols when you're up 17-11. Yeah. It was crazy. So,
and for those wondering, pardon?
Passionate fan base in that sport.
Well, and for those wondering, the song is Electric Worry by Clutch. I'm sure Sean will probably sprinkle it into this show at some point just for you, Dustin. But I thought it was interesting though to have those different pieces, and then it's a little more edgy production, and there's a couple things where the announcers say, "What does he got?" and the guys and the crowd will say nothing. And I like that part where there's some engagement, and the music's going the whole time. Like for those who've never been to a professional lacrosse game, it's a different show than you get at the NHL or NFL or NBA. To me was something a little bit similar, but with less action. NASCAR, everybody's wearing headphones because it's so loud. UFC was interesting, like silent during the fights too. So interesting to see the different pieces. But speaking of this whole scenario, on the weekend, I was asked, Brandon Tommy from the Canadian Rodeo Sports Medicine team, former guest of the show, he asked me to speak at the sports medicine, the spring training conference up in Edmonton. And then I was there at the spring training conference, and Leanne Gullett is one of the people that works at Acumen in Edmonton, and her husband is the producer. I'd have to look at his title exactly, but he's part of he runs the production for the Edmonton Oilers.
He's the head of their game pres, right?
Yeah. So Leanne was like, "Hey, are you going?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to the game after this." He's like, "Oh, well, you should meet up with Lindsay." And I was like, "Oh, I haven't met Lindsay. I heard he worked for the Oilers." And he's and then she explains, "Yeah, he's the in-game presentation." I'm like, "Oh, geez, yeah, well, I should definitely meet him." So then all of a sudden we had it lined up to meet him outside the premium suite entrance or whatever at 6:45 because 8:00 game, 8:11 puck drop, and he shows us around for like an hour before the game. We go and see everything, all the production, all of Rogers, and like for me as an Oilers fan, like that was pretty cool. I do got to say though, Dustin's second favorite team, the Flames, and I'm a weirdo.
Boy.
At the time, I kind of was out of hockey for a long time, like in the late 2000s, like from 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there until when the Oilers were awful. And then I just kind of went to the States and went to school and kind of didn't follow it for a couple of years. But then I met Chris Russell that time. I did an article on his bull he had a while back, and kind of got back in. I was like, oh, I can be a Flames fan again here for a while.
He had the Red Mile bull, right?
Red Mile, yeah. With I think that bull came from Alan Shields, but then
Dane with them.
Yeah, and then he went as maybe both Daneses. I don't know how that all worked, but I think he bucked under Outlaw, didn't he?
I can't remember, but you're right on the Danes being part of it with Chris and
Kyle and Wyatt. I'm sure I'm thinking they're both part of it. Anyways, so then I was like, oh, I guess I could be a Flames fan. I can know somebody. I met him now, and he toured us around after that game. That time. It was really cool. I don't know who all was with me at that time. Maybe it was Wasey and I, or was it you and I forget now.
Me.
Okay. Anyways, but then when Chris got traded to the Oilers, I was like, oh, this is perfect. Now I can be an Oilers fan again. So officially back with the Oilers.
Do you have a Chris Russell jersey from the Flames and the Oilers?
Yeah, I have both of them. They're right back here.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I remembered that. Yeah.
I have both of them.
This is like the Brett Kissel episode all over again when he went through and showed us his jersey collection. There it is. There's the part-time fan, number 4.
Part-time fan? I was thinking
Yeah.
I could like cut them up and put them together.
Like Travis and Kelsey's mom has the
It has
jersey
both
of-
sides.
Yeah.
Or like the Kachuk's mom too. Like it's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so it was pretty cool to see that and pretty happy that Edmonton's back in the playoff race again after having a totally dog shit start to the season.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it was a fun weekend up in Edmonton. Got to hang out with our editor Sean Morton. We had a drink or two, had a good
boy.
time. Yeah, had a fun time. So I don't know what my point was about that, but the production, I'm interested in the production side of things.
Well, Edmonton does a really good job with theirs, and they've got the state-of-the-art facility to really elevate it. So cool to experience that for sure.
I'm interested and excited to see what happens in Calgary once things get rocking again with the new building here. What's 2026 is the plan?
4 years, I think. 4 years, you'll see.
2028 then?
2028, you'd probably see them playing in there. So,
Oh man, it's a long ways away.
yeah, but it's coming.
All right. Well, what else you got here, Dustin? Should we get to the episode here?
I'm excited to listen to it. I wasn't able to partake in it. I got subbed out for this one, but a worthy substitute nonetheless in Kynan Vine. But really exciting episode. I'm excited to listen to it. A guy that I've idolized and listened to, and the soundtrack to all the old NFR tapes we listened to growing up and watching on TV. This is a pretty cool guy to have on here at a very interesting stage in his career as well. So
100%. Well, once again, this is Cowboy Shit, the podcast. My name's Ted Stovin. He's Dustin Edwards. Our interview with Jeff Metters is coming up next.
You can have your riches, all the gold you save. There ain't room for one thing if everybody's great. Bang, 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 bang. Vamonos, vamonos. Bang, bang, bang. Vamonos, vamonos.
All right. Well, we're going to introduce our next guest, our guest for the podcast today. He is what I would call the father of Western sports broadcasting, a Hall of Famer, and for over 30 years, the main host of the National Finals Rodeo on multiple different network TV broadcasts. Mr. Jeff Metters is with us today, Teddy.
Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here. You betcha.
You said multiple broadcasts, Kynan, and I got to ask, one of the things I had wrote down over the years, it was how many different station, broadcast partners, networks, I guess. I got ESPN, CBS Sports, I think OLN, maybe Versus, and now Cowboy Channel. And before that,
Well, there's,
how many were there and which ones were the best ones so far? Like you've been a part of all of them.
there's maybe even TNN in there somewhere.
Yeah,
back in the day.
probably.
I don't, TNN, maybe that's before my time. So when I started, it was ESPN, and then it became ESPN2 mostly, and then some on ESPN, and then ESPN Classic most of the time, and then on ESPN2 some. And then when I took over in terms of behind the scenes and my company was producing and doing all that, we moved it to Great American Country.
Oh yeah.
So GAC, which was kind of a, more of a country music based network. And what I liked about it was kind of a collision of country, kind of like the NFR, collision of rodeo and country music. That's what happens in Las Vegas for those 10 days, and biggest ratings that GAC had ever had. So it was successful, but they're really slow on becoming HD. They kind of made some promises, and they just weren't getting there. So we went back to CBS Sports Network, and then Patrick bought the rights and became Cowboy Channel and RFD. So those are the networks. Now if you go to regular season rodeos, now you get into OLN was in there. You had Fox Sports. You had some different things that were part of it. But in terms of the NFR, those are the only networks that I've been involved with where it's been on the air.
What I think maybe potentially Ted is thinking of is there were a few years where the broadcast network in the United States was not the broadcast network
Up
that
here.
we would have in Canada that would cover it. And we had so many years there where, oh, it's great, it's going to be on this channel, and we get that in Canada. And then, the next year it wouldn't be, or it would be with a different partner. And I think there was a couple of years there where it was on ESPN in the States, but then it was coming through OLN in Canada, or one of those kind of random networks, but which you could probably actually explain to us how that works, of why it would be different from country to country if we have ESPN in Canada, but ESPN in Canada doesn't broadcast the same programs as they're broadcasting in the United States. Like, why is that?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I don't know if that's more of a, they have more of a multi-feed, going on with ESPN. No, I don't know about like ESPN Plus and some things down that line now. It's like the Cowboy Channel Plus app should open it up for you guys to be able to get it in Canada just on the app. And of course, that's where everything's going anyway, is just the streaming side of things. So, but in terms of those deals, I mean, it's, and I don't know if it's a PRCA deal. I don't know if that's a sports deal that, our rights, our US rights are going to this network, and our Canadian or international rights are going to a different outlet. It can kind of change, I think it can vary from sport to sport if they let those go. So it may be just negotiated on an individual basis.
Okay, so I got to ask though, if Patrick bought the rights, then that's a Cowboy Channel owned property essentially, where he's paying the PRCA or LVE for the rights to NFR, or who's that deal with? And then I have a follow-up.
PRCA.
It's PRCA.
PRCA.
Okay.
Yeah, they have their own. They have the TV and the digital rights.
And then so previously though, on the different networks, GAC, ESPN, CBS, my first thought is that GAC paid for the rights for the NFR at the time, but then I'm looking at CBS and thinking about how the PBR shows work, and I think that that's a bought part. And I think I remember hearing Carl Stressman at one point saying that that they paid for time on CBS so that they had that national broadcast, whereas now, no offense to the Cowboy Channel, but I don't know what the numbers look like on the difference, but there's probably more households, or maybe I'm assuming wrong, but are there more households in the US that have the Cowboy Channel than CBS Sports Network? Like where how does that all fit in? What were the differences there? Did it used to be a paid product on the networks, or how did that work before? Or can you even say, I don't want to put you in a spot where you can't really say what the deal was?
Yeah, before the Cowboy Channel, the PRCA controlled their own rights, and they didn't have a media rights deal. So what they did was they whether it was GAC or say CBS, they worked out a deal with them. And I think the NFR has always kind of been a barter, because you can sell the ad so much, and they would pay for some time if it was regular season. A different setup than what the PBR experiences with CBS for sure, but they do a lot more content than what the PRCA was doing. The PRCA was only doing between 7 and 10 rodeos a year, and they weren't live; they were posted. And then the NFR, of course, would be live. So just kind of different setups like that. But then now that Patrick's, came in and bought the rights to everything, obviously so much more rodeos on. And then, it's a deal where he has the television rights to everything PRCA for the most part, and does his best to put as much of that on as he possibly can.
So Jeff, and while we're on this kind of subject of the rodeos now being, every rodeo just about in the PRCA and even Canada in the CPRA can be on the Cowboy Channel in some way, shape, or form if they want to stream it or whichever on the app. And there's a lot of, there's even ads during the NFR on the comments of, it's growing the sport and whichever. In your opinion, I guess how, in that frame of reference, how is it growing the sport if it's on the Cowboy Channel, which is a subscription-based platform to people that would have to know what it is to buy it, as compared to having rodeo on CBS Sports Network in what I've, heard referenced 30 million homes, CBS main network, 300 million homes. Like, what's kind of your opinion on a very specific channel for that endemic audience compared to being on a broadcast network that could potentially go out to hundreds of millions?
Well, see, the bulk of the PBR airs on CBS Sports Network, and CBS Sports Network is only in probably 55 million homes. RFD TV, which is the sister network to the Cowboy Channel, has about the same, actually, in terms of numbers of homes. Now, CBS is different. When the PBR does, they air, different shows on some weekends on big CBS, which is, pretty much coast to coast and everywhere. And as an advertiser and if you're selling sponsorship, I mean, that adds teeth to what you're trying to sell. Hey, we're gonna be on 40 weekends a year on CBS Sports Network, but 8 of these weekends we're going to be on CBS in addition to that. So you're guaranteeing basically 1 million households minimum, for those shows. So there's a huge advantage in that. But and I think CBS Sports Network, to be honest with you, still isn't even rated. And my knock on that is you're airing in space, you're airing in college basketball, you're airing in college football. There's no promotion, very little promotion for the rodeos that we aired down that line. Whereas if you watch the Cowboy Channel, you can watch Stetson Wright from January through December. You can see all the major rodeos. You get all the majors. You get the Fort Worth, the San Antonios, the Houstons, Calgary, obviously, down that line, Pendleton. You get the entire season, and I think that's been a game changer. And I can't remember. I think if I'm going to roughly, don't hold me to those numbers, but they're relatively close. In 2019 and 2018 combined, I think off the ratings on CBS Sports Network, I think somewhere, not counting the NFR, I think somewhere around 2 million people watch Pro Rodeo rating wise. And then in 2020, now COVID helped, because you had kind of a captive audience, but I think you had close to 150 million viewers total, over the course of the year on the Cowboy Channel. So it gives you an idea of the different level of exposure. And, what Cowboy Channel probably doesn't do a very good job of is advertising outside of its own universe. Kind of a lot of preaching to the choir for the most part, instead of reaching out, and advertising on other networks and other events that might be, from NASCAR to the PBR itself on CBS that might drive viewers to the NFR. But, still, it's the home of Pro Rodeo, and they've done a good job of building that brand. So,
it is the home of Pro Rodeo now, but kind of going back to obviously over 30 years ago when you started with the NFR and then, with Butch, and built up that broadcast to what it is today. And maybe it was, obviously Geronimo and your own production, you guys were doing it, and you were doing it then for ESPN and then CBS. What's kind of been the I guess, progression of it, and how did you keep that going over the years without having a home of the PRC? Like, to me, that's very impressive that you had the passion for the sport of rodeo to do that, but B, navigating all of those broadcast networks and different people you would have to work with at the PRCA and Las Vegas events to get that done. What's been the progression over the years, and kind of how you've seen it change and come to be what it is today?
Well, when you go back to 91, which is the first year that I did it with Butch, there were only 3 rounds broadcast in those days, and they weren't live. They were delayed an hour and a half or whatever, or something down that line. So we only did rounds 8, 9, and 10. So it was the best job. I laugh and say that's the best job Butch and I ever had. We sat in the PRCA suite, we drank beer, we watched the rodeo, we called it research, and then unfortunately in round 7, we'd have to show up and do a rehearsal night, and then we broadcast round 8, 9, and 10. Then somebody got the bright idea to carry all 10 rounds. Who would have thought of that? So then obviously we had to show up and start going to work and doing all 10 rounds. But even then, in the ESPN days, it was delayed, 60 to 90 minutes. And then we were trying to fit the rodeo into 2 hours, and that included commercial breaks. And it was very difficult. I would remember, in those days I just hosted, but I would remember, obviously we weren't live, so we could do what we wanted to in the truck. And, there were a couple of events where we'd just stop, we wouldn't even be recording. We'd watch team ropers, 4 or 5 team roping runs go by, and then we'd pick it back up. Barrel racing. I remember nights in barrel racing where, maybe 3 runs made it. We were trying to sandwich it into a 2-hour window, and obviously it wasn't all going to fit, and something had to go. And so that was another one of my knocks on ESPN. They didn't care. They're not quite. They weren't in the '90s. They weren't quite the network that they are today, but they were striving to be that stick and ball sport, or puck stick and ball sport, that they are now, and that's what was important to them. And the rodeo was just a time buy or a barter or whatever. They really didn't care. And so we did a couple of them live, a couple of rounds live, but that was about it. And as we moved it to Great American Country, now suddenly we could expand it. It's still very difficult to do live. It's an arm wrestling match with Las Vegas events. They want that rodeo to go like 1,000,000 miles an hour. Don't get me started on that, because I'm so opinionated about, it's time to let that sport, that the NFR breathe. Let it be what it is. Let's put replay in. Let's make it great. But we can touch on that later if you guys want to. But once we got it to Great American Country, now we started live, but because they wouldn't take commercial breaks for us. If you were sitting in the booth with me and Butch, we'd say, "Hey, Casey Field wins bareback riding. We'll be right back." And literally the truck would dip to black, come right back up. "Hey, welcome back. Round 3 of the National Finals Rodeo," like 4 seconds. And the networks would add the commercial breaks in. So every time there's a commercial break, we got 3 minutes more, 4 minutes more behind. So, but at least we were carrying every run. Nobody was hitting the cutting room floor. And GAC, what they really allowed us to do was create the pre-show. So now we could create an hour pre-show coming in, and that started expanding that footprint to give it more of a Super Bowl type feel. And then, of course, at the Cowboy Channel, I'm doing 10 plus hours live every day. So it's just, every day is just dedicated to the NFR.
I've got to ask quick about the creation of Geronimo, and then I gotta ask about Wintercom and who they were, where they fit in, because I remember seeing David Sharp. His NFR pass for the longest time still said Wintercom from when he was with Extreme Bulls. And he just kept getting the same pass with the same number on it. Because I think once you get a pass at the finals, it pretty much stays the same unless you really goof up. And correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I still have the same picture from my first year that I ever went. But how did Geronimo start? And then who is Wintercom and how do they fit in? Because I think they have something to do with ESPN maybe in the Extreme Bulls, but I could be way off. But I just got to ask about how that fit in and who they were.
Yeah, Wintercom actually predates Geronimo. So I was a sportscaster at the NBC station in Tulsa. I did weekend sports and just fantastic job. And Wintercom had started in the early 80s broadcasting horse racing. They'd figured out it was quarter horse racing, the All-American, the Rainbow, and then it was called the Kansas Futurity in those days. Now it's the Rodeo Futurity. Quarter horse racing's Triple Crown. There was a couple of guys out of the ABC affiliate in Tulsa, which was extremely successful affiliate. They realized, hey, there's a niche here. So they had started doing that. They'd gone from quarter horse racing to thoroughbred racing. And in 1988, they picked up a magazine show called America's Horse, which revolved around the American quarter horse. And it was all kinds of stuff from, cutting, reining, rein cow horse. It was a bunch of different things. And they hired a good friend of mine to be the producer of that show. And he knew I grew up on a ranch, was a cowboy. So they needed somebody just to do cutting and reining. And so I was still a sportscaster in 1988, and I'd do a segment a month. I made $500 a month. I thought I was the richest guy on the planet. And then in 1990, Jim Sharp, the NFR is on ESPN. It's round 10, and Jim Sharp is about to nod to win the world championship. And ESPN, not being the sports network that it is today, that it's evolved into, it hit the top of the hour. Jim Sharp's about to nod. Top of the hour comes, and they go to the next show. Gone. Nobody even saw Jim Sharp make the ride. So the PRCA was extremely upset, and they wanted somebody with more clout. And Wintercom had become a pretty solid program packager for ESPN. And they had that horse equine background, and that led the PRCA to them. So in 1991, Wintercom started producing all the rodeo. And they started producing the Wrangler World of Rodeo, which was 10 rodeos a year, then the National Finals Rodeo. And that would continue to probably 2010, 2011. And I wound up going to work full-time for Wintercom for about a decade. And Wintercom was kind of the heart and soul of it was a guy named Jim Wilburn, who was probably the best television sales guy that ever lived. And, you know, if you talk to Jim, there was a time when things had gone south. They'd started Wintercom, and they had a couple $1 million worth of quarter horse stallion semen that they were holding as collateral for the bills that they were owed by people. And in the end, it became one of the largest. It was the largest program packager for ESPN and one of the most successful sports production companies in the history of TV in the U.S. So pretty incredible company. It's sold a couple times now. Now it's owned by Kroenke and the Outdoor Channel, and they do Major League Fishing. They do some other things. But I left there in 2000. I decided I wanted to just be my own boss. Wanted to start my own production company. That's how Geronimo started. I didn't really realize how hard it was to get that first production contract. So I freelance hosted for CBS and ESPN and a bunch of different people. I did the PRCA. I did, Extreme Bulls. I did the rodeo. I did thoroughbred racing. I did a lot of different things, and then finally got Geronimo started. So, and then in like 2012, maybe somewhere in there, we took over everything for the PRCA.
Wow. What was the
That's
first
a long answer. I'm sorry about that.
I prefer the long
great.
answers.
That was great.
I didn't know the whole story with Wintercom. I just knew the name. I didn't really know how it all fit in. But you mentioned Geronimo and getting it started. What was the first major production you did with your own company, and how did it go?
My first one was championship bull riding, which Tuff Edeman had left the PBR, and Tuff and I are still really good friends. And it was a terrible show. It aired on the Outdoor Channel. And I actually, as a favor to Tuff, hosted the season with him. And it's far and away the worst TV I've ever even remotely been associated with.
I remember watching it.
You're trying to do 17 different jobs. It'd be so hard.
Yeah. And then we took it over, and that was Geronimo's first deal, and we changed it overnight. I mean, great graphics, great action, turned it into a real television show. The first year it aired on RFD TV, and then it moved over to GAC, which is how GAC eventually got the NFR, because we moved to Great American Country. It was the first non-country music show that aired in primetime on GAC. And then we moved it to Fox Sports. When the PRCA kind of invaded, they weren't very happy with me. They kind of PRCA used their clout, and they put the rodeo and the Extreme Bulls. And so I had to move championship bull riding to Fox Sports Net, and then Fox 2.
And I just saw something the other day that Teton is taking the American to Fox. Is that right?
Yeah, they are. Fox 1, I think. Fox Sports 1.
And
it's a good home.
Is that something that you're involved in too, Jeff?
No, that's just Teton Ridge. I don't have anything to do with them. They bought the American from Patrick, and it's kind of their own little entity. They do that $1 million performance horse deal, which is really cool. It's got cutting, reining, and rein cow horse in it on the night before usually, and then you get into the American, which is a cool rodeo. I hosted it one time, and Patrick sold it, so that's how good a job I did with it, I think. So I got rid of it.
I wasn't sure though, because
it's gone.
But the news the other day was that you're leaving the Cowboy Channel. I couldn't really verify it much. I don't know. I didn't look back at your own Facebook page here yet, but I think Steve Kenny broke the news on one of his shows at one point. But I hadn't heard it from yourself yet, and I didn't see if there was a post over Christmas. I should have double checked it here. But what's the story there?
You wouldn't find one. There's not one on there, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I made that announcement on Luke Branquin's podcast on the last day of the NFR on round 10. So I'm my final day is 12/31. So at the time that we're airing this, we haven't quite reached that date yet. So until I'm totally clean, I probably won't make any more announcements or posts until after after I'm 100% on my own. It's kind of, I worked for Wintercom for a decade. I'd worked for myself for 20 years before I went to work for Patrick at Cowboy Channel. Great visionary. It's been so much fun. So honored to work with him and his family and be a part of that first 4 years of the Cowboy Channel. But I just kind of, there's some things I want to do. I like working for myself. I like being my own boss. I kind of like being the captain of the ship. So those are kind of, just, it's been that mentality that made it hard for me to take the job to begin with, because I knew I was going back to work for somebody, which, it is what it is. Some people like that. Some people don't. And I just kind of felt like it was time at this stage for me to kind of get back to being more of my own boss.
That being said, and again, your reasons for leaving the Cowboy Channel or whichever, I totally understand that. And
I also like to work for myself. I get it.
I'm the exact same, and we're all in the same boat. But do you have anything specific that you can tell us that you thinking about doing, a project, something cool? Like, I mean, you've done some cool stuff on your own, even otherwise outside of just broadcasting, straight rodeo. Is that what you're kind of having in mind, or a different sport, maybe golf, because you're a big golf guy?
Well, I shot, there's a reality show I've been dying to do for, since 2018. And we shot, it's called 10 Nights in Vegas. And I partnered with Taylor Sheridan on it. And we shot it over this year's NFR. So we're starting post on that. It was a fun 10 days. We got amazing stuff. It's about 70% what happens in the arena, the highs and lows that the contestants experience. And about 30% of it is about how Las Vegas really, just becomes cowboy town, for 10 days. It's crazy how, it's evolved. Like when I first started doing the NFR, you came out there, we stayed at the Showboat, and you wouldn't even know the NFR was in town, and now you can't really go to Las Vegas during that 10-day stretch and not, be a minority if you're not wearing a cowboy hat. So there's so many things that happen and so many stories to be told. I think the next big frontier is creating stars. I think it's telling the stories. There's a reason why I love rodeo. I couldn't cover the NBA if you put a gun to my head. I don't care about athletes arriving in limos and wearing the weirdest shit you've ever seen, as they make their way to the locker room. It just doesn't jive with me. And as you guys know, in the rodeo world, they treat you like one of their own. I can be on the air at the NFR and Cody Ohl would text me, "I'm gonna kill it tonight." I would get something wrong, and Trevor Brazil would say, "Dude," and they, and not in a negative way, just they're just constant. They treat you like one of their own. There's not these giant walls of agents and money and things that have ruined the game. Good Lord, you go to Cowboy Christmas and you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an NFR contestant. They're just so accessible. So it's just a different mentality, and I love that mentality. But I think the stories in rodeo are as compelling or more compelling than any other sport. It's pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I'm hurt. I can't compete, and I'm not making 10 million guaranteed. I got to come back early. What Kai Hamilton did, gets wrung out. He's a human helicopter, spends the night in the hospital, gets up and rides a bull that morning. And then he's the only guy that rides a bull that night, wins $99,000. It's that kind of guts and effort that you just don't find anywhere else. Not to pick on anybody. Deion Sanders, let's just say, I'm a longtime Dallas Cowboys fan, and I wouldn't be scared to jog down the field at my age right now if Deion was going to hit me, because Deion never hit anybody. He was pretty, he made interceptions, and he was lightning fast. And then you have the Etbauer brothers competing in Denver, in the 90s, and Billy's watching Robert. Robert hangs up in the stirrup a couple jumps, gets up, pilfers through the dirt, and then just walks out. And Billy's like, comes through the door there behind the chutes, and Billy's like, "What was that all about?" And he opens his hand, he's holding his thumb. The horse caught him and cut his thumb off like a cleaver did it. And I loved reading the article about it in Sports News where Robert said,
wild.
well, it was the darndest thing. You know, it was the darndest thing. And sure, I could have hopped around and acted like I was in pain, but nobody cared. I can't imagine the reaction from Deion Sanders if he'd lost his thumb, had he made a tackle in the NFL. You know, I mean, it would have just been, you know, that's just the mentality of those guys, and that's what I love about them.
Yeah.
I got a lot of things I got to ask on this side, but I think it's a good timing to talk about the NFR and the production. Kynan was probably he was the first one that ever brought me into a real production meeting prior to the CFR in 2011 or 12 or something, but letting it breathe. And there's a fine line between letting it breathe and having a 4-hour perf. So there's that fine line on the production side, but I'm with you on creating the stars and creating the, you know, telling the stories, because I went to the NFR for the first time in 2004 as a patron in the stands. I was just getting into the rodeo the first couple of years, but went there and saw the show, and I've been there, you know, probably all but maybe a few years since, and it hasn't changed at all. It's the exact same show that they put on, and you've seen it since at least 91, probably before that, but it seems like it's the same show with the same look, the same elements, the same things happen every night, the same opening happens. It's the same thing. It's like Groundhog Day. And I know that they got to get through the content, and the content is king with the 90-point rides and the 6-second tie down roping runs, but they're not telling any stories in between there, and nobody gets to know who these people are. And you have a person like Trevor Brazile, who is a star, but we don't even meet him. We meet 100 people in this hectic, ridiculous opening with people getting hurt on horses, but it's a tradition, so we can't change it. Like, why don't we introduce Stetson Wright and put him up against Kai Hamilton and, you know, do a real face-off thing like you guys did in Red Deer, whatever it might be, right? Like, there's so many stories that we can tell, and I love that you said that they need to let it breathe and they need to tell the stories, because I think if they don't, we're going to stay exactly how we've been for the last 35 years.
So I'll add to Ted's, I guess, comment. I think that was more of a comment, but I
want to but Jeff has something to say about
I'll add it so that you can, you know, kind of reference it too, to, you know, and I know you have a lot of opinions. Obviously my role is producing the actual live rodeos, and, you know, we work together in that capacity, you for TV, me for live rodeo. But what would your ideal, situation be, I guess, your ideal production be, is of how to best run a nice smooth rodeo for in-house guests, and then obviously make it good for TV? Because I mean, I've had this discussion / argument / debate with multiple different people in, you know, any different broadcast company / producer of these events that you can think of, where it's like, is TV running the rodeo, is rodeo running the TV, this, that, or the other thing. But like, what do you find has worked best over the years to ensure that you're getting the best product you can get for television, but the rodeo is like you said, it's still a great rodeo, it's still a great live sports event, but they're also getting an opportunity to tell those stories?
I like the speed of the NFR in terms of the way the contestants roll. But in my opinion, you know, if I'm watching Oklahoma State play OU and it's a controversial call, did he make the catch? Did he not make the catch? Is it a touchdown? Is it not a touchdown? I'm not mad that it's an instant replay. I'm not sitting there upset, you know. In fact, the longer it takes, the more drama builds, you know, and the more opinionated people be. I think you've got to have replay. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line at the NFR. You have world championships on the line. This year, we had, you know, Tyler Wagaspack. You know, he throws a steer, doesn't get the flag. Luckily enough, he was able to get hold of the steer again and throw him. It cost him 4 or 5 seconds or whatever. It cost him, you know, probably money in the average, but he still wound up winning, you know, down that line. You had a 3.1 in team roping that, you know, may or may not have been a crossfire. I couldn't tell you a crossfire if it bit me on the butt. I mean, it's just like, I at the NFR, I'd throw it out. You know, these guys are backing in the box and they're just letting it go. You know, so I think replay needs to be there. They'll give Stetson Wright a rewrite if his horse fails to kick one time. And I think if you got a calf like Cody Ole had a few years ago, where he nods his head, he's going to win the world championship, and the calf walks out. breaks the barrier, misses it, it's all gone. I mean, that should be a rerun, in my opinion. That's not a fair chance at winning. I don't like, because they're on a time frame, I don't like the fact that they'll dismiss the crowd and take a bull re-ride to an empty house. Stetson Wright did that 2 years ago and won the round. Nobody saw it. It was on TV, but I mean, as a fan, and I've told Las Vegas this many times, do you think that Fox sits down with the NFL before they do the Super Bowl and say, how fast can we get this damn thing over with? Let's get this damn thing done. Let's get these people in. Let's get them out.
Except for this year, maybe.
And if
it's in Vegas.
Yeah, now they might. But if I'm Elmer and Thelma Dinkley from Tallahassee, Oklahoma, and I've saved up all year to go to Thomas and Mack Center and sit down and watch a NFR performance, I'm not in a hurry. It's not like I'm starting the clock. And if you get up and go get something from the concession stand, you're going to miss half or all of an event. It goes that fast. That just from the event side of it, that's part of it. And then now you have guys like Patrick Gotch who've made a substantial investment in buying the TV rights. And we're all conditioned. You guys go to hockey games, you guys go to Calgary, you go to whatever. You're conditioned for TV timeouts. That's become pretty damn normal now. That's just what it is. And where Las Vegas might be mad about the rodeo going 2 minutes or 3 minutes longer. Well, that's $300,000, for the Cowboy Channel or more, in terms of 3 minutes to Patrick's way different than it is 3 minutes to Las Vegas. And I can understand that the rush in 1985 and 1986 and 1987 and 1990, but now you have over 500,000, 500,000, 600,000 people coming to Las Vegas for the National Finals Rodeo. And if those people, the 17,000 at Thomas and Mack, get out 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later, it ain't moving the meter. Nobody cares, Yeah. And it's the only major sporting event in America where the building controls TV instead of television controlling the building.
Yeah. And, I mean, even I've been to the NFR 12, 15 times, and I'm obviously a rodeo person, grew up in the sport, as close to what you'd consider a rodeo sports fan as you can get. But you go to the NFR and it's just, to me, and everybody has their opinion. Oh, we love how the pace of the NFR, we love the speed of it, the excitement. It's great. But it's also not great when half the bucking horses come out of the chute and they don't even get to say their name, or sometimes even the timed events, like they haven't announced the person's name yet and they're already halfway through their run. And it just, that to me, it's like that part of it's disappointing because it is the national championships of the sport. It's supposed to be, the sole focus is supposed to be on the people playing the game, right? Not on the people running the game. So, I think I
agree. It'd be perfect for us to, like barrel racing. You can't even really show a replay because it's just boom, boom, boom. I mean, if I ran the world, it would be like, the barrel racer goes out and we would have a red hat there for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then let him go, just to make sure that we're, you get a chance to see why Brittany Posey in round 10 knocked down a barrel, and be able to address that. And it's very difficult. And forget telling no features, or, there's no features in the NFR show. It's not like we can build a hero like that. It doesn't have it. It's not there. We could do it, but we'd either have to be delayed, or, miss Cowboys or Cowgirls.
Well, the interesting thing is that it can be done for television. If you look at the Calgary Stampede, even the Canadian finals this year was on the Cowboy Channel for the first time. And when we came in and started having conversations about how is it going to be done, and are we going to go live to the arena, no commentators, or which, kind of what model are we going to use? When we finally decided on it and started working on the production, I said to Carly and everybody with the Cowboy Channel, we're not going to have to change much because the way that we set the rodeo up, it accommodates for the commercial breaks already in our transitions, and we have time for you to do features and whichever. But if you're sitting in the stands at the Canadian Finals Rodeo, Ted, you can correct me if I'm wrong, even in the past 5 years that it's been in Red Deer, people would say, man, it's like way faster than it used to be, which it is, but it still can accommodate for television. And it's the same with the Calgary Stampede. You know, we probably took an hour off that rodeo just about from the time I started to when I left Calgary. But again, that still accommodated to, you know, when you came in to do CBS that year, we didn't have to change the production of the rodeo for you to do TV. It was already set up that way. So it can be done, you know, and that was, I guess, my question is what model do you prefer? Like you've done not just the NFR. I guess that would be another question is what are all the different rodeos and major rodeos that you have been a part of a broadcast or Geronimo has produced? And which one's kind of your favorite? Which one do you like working with? Which one's your, you know, which one, if you could go every year to it, which one would it be?
Well, I mean, I love Calgary. Yeah, it's the most relaxing 10 days of my year. I'm stunned at the difference of what my 10 days is like there and my 10 days at the NFR is like. One, I never ever worry about losing my voice when I'm in Calgary. You know, I mean, it's just I get up in the morning, I go to Reds, I have coffee, I have breakfast, and if Butch didn't come with me, he comes by and picks me up. We go to the arena. I sit and work on my notes. I watch the barrel racers school their horses. I go to a production meeting. I come back. I eat a little bit of lunch. I cut any audio they need for that first segment. We settle in at 1:30. We do the rodeo. We do a little bit of post. Is it Ranchman's? What's the steakhouse that
Which
everybody
one?
goes to?
Oh, the Keg.
There's a couple of them. The Keg.
I think
yeah,
the Keg.
we go to the Keg. Yeah. We go to the Keg. We eat a steak. I have some bourbon. I go back. I go to bed. I get up, and the next day I do it all over again. It's like the most relaxing. It's like a vacation. I am so fresh. You know, when I go to the NFR, you know, my stress meter at Calgary never gets above a 2, and at the NFR it never gets lower than 8.5, probably. You know, so for me, I'm laughing because it's like maybe I've made bad career choices because there I'm just the host. I just show up and I just play television every day, and it's so relaxing. So the NFR is just one fire after another, but I love being up there. I love that time of year. I love the rodeo. It's just spectacular. I love Fort Worth. You know, I mean, before Dickies opened, I don't think that I would have put Fort Worth in my top 40. Now it's in my top 5. You know, it's like rodeo and church. It's just, you know, it's a beautiful building. You know, it's just, you know, I like the tournament format. Gives you big names every night. You know, there's some drama. Who's moving on, who's not moving on. So, you know, San Antonio is fantastic. Houston hates me. They denied me a credential last year.
Really?
It's the weirdest story. 2 years ago. I've never been denied a credential in my entire career, and Houston denied me a credential.
Why? What's this? What?
I don't really know. I think there was some feathers ruffled early. And which I didn't really have anything to do with because I think for some reason the Cowboy Channel asked for an exorbitant amount of credentials when we didn't need anybody because I wasn't sending anybody down there. And so I was going down for George Strait. In my entire career, this was 2 years ago, I'd never met George Strait. In all the circles, we run in similar circles and have similar friends, but I'd never met him. And so Código Tequila was advertising on the Cowboy Channel, and they're like, "Hey, we need somebody to go down and do a quick interview with George." And I was like, "I know the perfect person for that." And so he was performing the day after Houston ended, and so I just said, I was talking to Josh Hilton, and he goes, "Hey, just don't even mess with it." He's like, we're just, I was like, "No." So I went through the proper channels to get a credential, and it was kind of comical. But they were like, "Where do you want to go?" And I was like, "Well, I'll just sit with Bob and Boyd, or I'll just sit with them, you know, with Hambo." Or, no, can't do that. No. Like maybe we'll give you a ticket in this section, you know. And I was like, "Well, okay." This is on like Wednesday, and I was going down there on Saturday. And so by Friday morning, I hadn't heard anything from them. So I just sent an email and said, "Hey, sorry for the late ask. I've made other arrangements." And then they were offended. You know, where are you coming? Where are you going to be? What are you doing? And I was like, I'm not going to be with you guys. I can tell you that. I get the message here. I've been denied a credential for the first time in my entire career.
Oh God.
But so it was just it's probably just miscommunication. But Houston's a cool rodeo. San Angelo's a great rodeo. And they do it. They kind of crank it up there, especially with the Cinch shootout. I like those outdoor rodeos in the summer. They're fun. Pendleton's amazing. But I mean, I think if you just said, "Hey, you know, you got to pick one rodeo and stick with it," I'm going to be at the Stampede, you know, in July.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you're talking about the stress level or whichever, obviously having worked there for a number of years, but I think on the television side of things, and I've had the opportunity to work lots of different rodeos and productions and the American and all these different rodeos, or be involved in them anyways, Salt Lake City. I would say, and this is my personal opinion, that Cindy Gillies, if anybody ever gets the opportunity to work with Cindy Gillies, she is the difference maker in broadcast television. And I just think it's just a breath of fresh air. Like, she's something else to work with, and I would say it's probably underestimated what she does for that rodeo production and the television production. But yeah, it's amazing to the difference you notice when you have somebody like her involved in the production.
Oh, she's fantastic. I love Cindy. Yeah. And 2 years ago, she came down and worked with us at the NFR. So she came down and hung out with us. But yeah, Cindy is remarkable. Knows the sport, knows television, you know, is extremely committed. You're spot on, just fantastic to work with. And, you know, kind of like you, Kynan. I mean, just those people that you really enjoy, you meet in your career, and you love when your paths cross with them and you get to work on a project or be involved with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny you said that about the 10 nights of the NFR, because I seem to remember you flying to Calgary and we went for breakfast, you and Cindy and I, and to talk about a little project that you wanted to start, 10 nights of the NFR and 10 days of the Calgary Stampede. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah, that was and totally agree with you, whether that ends up on Netflix or Prime or obviously Paramount somewhere. The telling of the stories, especially from the Calgary Stampede, where there's big money on the line, and you know, the NFR and the difference that those rodeos make in people's lives, I think, you know, and the culture of the Calgary Stampede, when it's on, the entire city becomes the Calgary Stampede, and they're in it, right? And the same with the NFR. You get in a cab at the NFR and guys just say, "Oh yeah, the rodeo's on," like it's their rodeo, which is great. You know, they don't call it the National Finals Rodeo or whichever. It's like Las Vegas, that's their rodeo. So I agree. I think being able to tell those stories and take it to the masses, I would venture to say I don't go many weeks, if months, without somebody bringing up Fearless to me on Netflix. People outside the sport, and they say, "Oh yeah, you know, JB and Jose Vitor Leme and Kaique Pachinko," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? How do you know about that?" "Oh, I watched Fearless on Netflix." So there is merit to rodeo or Western sports being those stories being told outside of just broadcasting the actual sport, right?
Yeah, and you can see what, you know, Full Swing, you know, ratings wise does for, you know, the PGA Tour, the Netflix deal on pro tennis, you know, the pro tennis tour, and Drive to Survive F1, you know, just creates fans outside of that normal choir that you have there, you know. And so it's an opportunity that you know, to take it to a whole different. It's kind of like what Yellowstone's done. You know, Yellowstone's made cowboy hats cool again. You know, it took cowboys to, you know, urban. It took it to the coast. You know, it took it to people that, you know, before wouldn't have paid any attention to it. You know, and now when you get a chance to introduce them to a Kai Hamilton, you know, or a Casey Field, where they can become emotionally invested in them and want to see them, you know, not just compete at the NFR, but compete all year long. that's how you grow the sport.
So growing the sport, I just had this conversation with somebody, Cassie Hausauer is, she does a podcast and does quite a bit of commentary work and different things. And one of the questions she got asked was about growing the sport of barrel racing. But I said, so relaying that back to you, what do you consider growing the sport, growing the fan base, growing the competitor base? What would your, I guess, opinion on what is growing the sport, growing sponsorship, whatever it might be. But then on top of that, what's the best form of, like you said, delivery to grow the sport? Is it that type of docu-series, the sport itself, a combination of them all? What would you say is like kind of the best way to do it in your opinion? And then what does growing the sport look like to you?
Well, I think the fastest way to jumpstart that is to create an amazing series that lets you in on the lifestyle of these guys and these cowgirls. The highs, the lows. What they go through just to compete, what they spend to make the national finals rodeo. The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, and I think growing the sport for me is Yellowstone's the model. It's people that don't wear a cowboy hat, but they know who Stetson Wright is, and they want to watch Stetson Wright compete. Non-endemic sponsors coming in, and I know a lot of the animal rights people. They use their propaganda, they do whatever, and it makes it hard for a Coca-Cola, or whatever, to be a huge part of rodeo and spend those dollars. But I think if the eyeballs are there, those sponsors are going to make their way over. So sponsorship dollars, and what the Cowboy Channel's done is, through that rights fee, every year they're making more and more money. I mean, just about every world champion this year, $450,000, right at $500,000, and that's really good to see, because that PRCA is at least taking that money and distributing it out, and making those purses bigger. So, better sponsors, bigger sponsors, non-endemic sponsors, the prize money for cowboys and cowgirls, and then just fans that you wouldn't expect, that are seeing the stories and becoming emotionally invested in a sport, in a lifestyle, and an athlete that is extremely unique.
And what's the plan for the documentary? Can you say much on it yet? You said you partnered with Taylor Sheridan on it. Of course, for those that don't know, he's the creator of Yellowstone, a couple of Sicario movies, Mayor of Kingstown, Tulsa King.
Probably Jeff's favorite, Tulsa King.
Tulsa King, yeah.
Based on a true story of Jeff Metters.
Well, I gave them a hard time because a lot of it they didn't even shoot in Tulsa. They shot a lot of the beauty in Tulsa, and then they shot the bulk of it in Oklahoma City. And not to knock Oklahoma City, but Tulsa's a way prettier town than Oklahoma City is. But I'm kind of down on Oklahoma. I'm gonna be honest with you. I thought maybe as Diane and I, we watched Tulsa Kings, and we thought it made Tulsa look kind of rough, and then we kind of took a look around and was like, it's pretty similar to what it is. Unfortunately, there's dispensaries everywhere, and casinos everywhere, and things down that line. I was like, I can't imagine that we wouldn't have crime. My son's a prosecutor, prosecutes homicide, so it's not like he's taking any time off. He's pretty busy. I'll see something on the news and be like, hey, are you going to get that case? He's like, what happened? Did somebody die? I'd be like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, probably. So, but as I got into Tulsa King, I really actually enjoyed it. My favorite movie that Taylor's done is Hell or High Water. I thought Hell or High Water was just fantastic. It was nominated for an Academy Award. No, we don't know what we're going to do with it yet. We shot it, we captured it, started posting it. The conversations that he talks to, the networks that he deals with, they're over. They don't return my calls. They wouldn't know who I was. So I'll stay out of the way on that and just try to create the best 10-episode show that I can possibly do.
And so that's one of the projects that you wanted to do, like post Cowboy Channel position. But a couple quick things though, like, will we see you on the broadcast next year in Vegas? Like, is that something that you know about yet? You're kind of smirking. Can you say anything about that yet? Like, for you, that's been a huge part of your time for a long time. Like, is that out the door, or what's going on?
It has been. It has not been discussed. I still have my show Bullseye that I'd like to continue, but I may have to find another network for that. I don't know. We haven't really had any in-depth conversations about, moving forward. I do not know.
I'm gonna have to be
right now. It's just a big question mark.
Be out there with my sign. Bring back.
Yeah.
Bring back Jeff.
Free metters.
Free metters. Yeah. So
Wow.
I guess kind of along the lines of the question about I guess your future with doing the NFR broadcast and
Geronimo, I guess too, because that's a huge part of your year too, is it not?
So, in your ideal world, between a live broadcast, a proper broadcast of what I would call the NFR Calgary Stampede, the proper broadcast of rodeo, what is your opinion, I guess, on the live streaming and what that does for, like you said, growing the sport? I have my own opinions on it. I think live rodeos or live sports are meant to be viewed live, but I know people do enjoy that, especially an endemic audience. But compared to, like you said, doing a docu-series or reality series or telling those stories, that's kind of the other spectrum, right? So how have you felt about that working with the Cowboy Channel since 2018?
Well, I mean, just you talking about like just taking the in-house feed from Lufkin, Texas, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not feasible to do what Patrick wants to do. You can't roll a truck out and a broadcast crew out, and do as many rodeos as he wants to do. I mean, I can take 100 rodeos in 100 days. The only way that you're going to be able to do that is take the in-house feed. I'm probably in that top 10 camp, where you do the top 10, you do it really well. I think there's a serious value add to your subscriptions on your app as you push more content to the app. But I don't know. I don't think watching the in-house feed from Pick Your Rodeo is going to attract a younger, cutting edge, more audience, more sponsors, and things down that line. I think it serves a purpose, and I think as a fan, there's a lot of rodeos you want to see. And that's the way you're going to have to see it. There's a trend in sports that we have the technology at the Cowboy Channel to do that we haven't done. And a lot of college basketball that you watch now, they're Remy's. They're done remotely. So they're going to bring a television truck in. They set it up. There's a technical director there. The director is in Bristol, Connecticut. The two announcers are sitting in a green screen room in Bristol, Connecticut. And they might do 3 basketball games in an afternoon, but you would never know. So, I mean, there's a way that if you wanted to do some rodeos that, like that, it would be very easy to do. Patrick prefers having the in-house announcers and the in-house feel. He wants people to feel like they're sitting on the front row of the rodeo. That's the experience that he's after, and that's what he kind of strives for.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like I said, as the producer of the live rodeo, I'm not producing the live rodeo to be put on television. And there are certain things that you're doing for the people sitting in the stands that out of context, I don't think people sitting at home, if a rodeo clown is telling off the cuff joke and kind of, just freewheeling it because he saw somebody do something funny in the stands, the people at home don't know what he's talking about, or announcers referencing something or the music or whatever it is. Like that's what we're doing, is we're pandering to the, live crowd. But I always get these comments, somebody, well, I watched this, rodeo, and this rodeo clown wasn't very funny, and he just was telling these jokes and they didn't make sense. And I'm like, well, you weren't sitting in the stands. And whether or not he was or wasn't funny, that's another question. But, I don't know. That's my opinion. I've always been under the same, I guess, opinion is rodeo would look and do a lot better if we did a proper broadcast, commentary and features and all the things to tell those stories. But yeah, you're going to have to focus it in on rodeos that are probably already, again, being produced for television, or at least have some sort of short round or something to feature it. But yeah, it's, I don't know. Everybody, it's just like judging the rodeo. There's a lot of armchair experts in rodeo. So you never know what you're going to get when you have that conversation with somebody.
Good TV is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, it's expensive. And to make that work and to do that, you have to have the sponsorship dollars that help you pay those bills. That's the tricky part, and to do it in, the way we're doing it at the Cowboy Channel, the way it's been done at the Cowboy Channel, in mass, and just so many of them. There's not an easy way to kind of carve that up and do it well. I think, when we first, in 2020, when we said this is what we're going to do, I think everybody looked at us, especially the rodeo committees and the in-house television providers with an arched eyebrow, like, have you lost your mind? But I think they've all kind of rallied now, and they're striving to make their broadcast better cameras, lighting stuff, because lighting's expensive. It's kind of hard to just take a rodeo and, somewhere in Utah and then suddenly light it up, like Clovis. I feel for Clovis because that's huge. And I mean, to light it up, to make it look like, Lambeau Field, is a lot of money. But
like you said, they're also producing that event for the live event, and they don't have a budget for also producing a television broadcast, right? So it does make that side of it makes it tough to have TV quality production when you're not getting paid TV, money. And and I guess on the flip side of that, it would be people, I guess the misconception is if rodeo ends up on TV, people think there's all this money involved. And that was one of my questions, or I guess something that for you to clarify for people if they're listening to this podcast today is there isn't big money involved in TV in rodeo currently, and oftentimes the rodeos that end up on TV, I mean, in the past, outside of the Cowboy Channel, we were paying to be on TV. There wasn't a payment per se. So maybe can you just talk a little bit about that and kind of fill people in on how that actually works? Like, again, the Cowboy Channel is one thing, but like if the Calgary Stampede was on CBS Sports Network, like we were in, I think 2018 or 19, can you maybe just let everybody know how that worked? Because there wasn't a multi-million-dollar deal done for TV on those situations.
Again, you're just kind of piggybacking, I because I'm a huge fan of the Stampede, I talked to CBS because we were, we'd done all kinds of rodeo on CBS. They kept asking, hey, what else can we do? And I was like, I need to do the Stampede. But again, we got a clean feed from you guys. I didn't have to roll a truck up there. I didn't have to invest, I don't know what Cindy's spending on television. I know what we spend on the NFR, but I didn't have to roll a truck in there and hire crew. And, we only did the last 2 days. But I was able to take that, bring it back to Tulsa, put some features in, add CBS graphics to it, flying Butch Knowles and Joe Beaver. And we did the Calgary Stampede, looked like we were there. It aired a week later, but if you're not paying attention in the U.S., and in those days it wasn't airing in the U.S., so you wouldn't really even know. But yeah, I mean there's just two ways to do it. I mean it's bring in the truck, bring in the crew, and when a good television truck's going to cost you, kind of pending, it's how long you set it up for, but it's going to cost you anywhere, like for 10 days, it's going to cost you anywhere from 100 to 175,000, depending on which truck company you're messing with. And they haven't even powered it up yet, haven't even crewed it. But obviously what happens at the Cowboy Channel is, it's taking, it would have happened without us anyway. If you were just sitting at the rodeo and you're in somewhere in Alberta, and you're watching the big screen and you see all that, then that's what we're taking. So for us, they pay for the internet, they pay for the production, and not a whole lot of money's changing hands down that line. So, And the biggest thing is what Patrick's paying in terms of, to the PRCA and things down that line for the rights to be able to do that. So that's given him a chance to kind of recoup that investment.
Yeah. And I mean, it probably isn't a exact number, but any rodeos that are doing, broadcasts like the Calgary Stampede or the NFR, I mean, you can easily be up over $100,000 a day once you've, like you said, your commentators
Doing
and
it
your
right,
production
yeah.
crew, and that's just what it costs. That's the cost of doing business to make a proper production. Which, again, if you say okay, 120,000, 130,000 a day doesn't sound like much until you say, well, that's 1.3 million for 10 days of the Calgary Stampede or the national finals. Now the money's getting to be real, and yeah, how do you recoup that? Maybe ads or whichever, but it's expensive to do a proper broadcast. That's for sure.
Man, look at Fort Worth. They're the 28 days or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
but you get to Fort Worth, you get to San Antonio, Houston. They have those built-in control rooms. I mean, they're built for it. You're not having to bring a truck in.
Mm-hmm.
The setup is there, so at least the infrastructure is already existing. It makes it more manageable for them, and they've done a really good job. Those rodeos, anyway, we're doing a really good job on the video side of, for the fan experience. They were doing a wonderful job. So that made it easier for them to transition to television. Houston actually was on Fox Sports Southwest, which became Bally's or whatever. But you have the Calgarys, you have the Houstons. They're producing a television show anyway. That's exactly what they're doing. So they're committed to the cause, and they get the sponsors, and they're spending the money, and they've got the gate and everything that they need to pay for it.
Is there anything else going back to the in-arena product in Vegas though, and the storytelling that way? Like, is it what how do you see that changing? And you mentioned replay as well, and how important having those actual replay challenges is. That's already being done a few other places. I think that's like we mentioned before, it's a dramatic, important piece of what's going on, but it doesn't
do you
seem
think
to be
it'll
happening.
happen?
Yeah,
Do you think it's
straight up?
change?
Yeah,
I do. And probably next year. I think it's on their radar very much. It could happen as early as next year. I don't think the other changes will come there. I think they're kind of committed to 10 more years on top of the 2 they have left. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of changes in terms of how the rodeos run, the tightness of it. I think it'll stay pretty similar to what it is, with the exception of adding replay.
okay.
So, aside from your opinion on how it is and how it's been run, what would you say that your most memorable moment that you've witnessed, or moments, a few if you can't pick one, but that you've witnessed at the NFR over the 30 years of getting to be there?
Well, I'd throw Kai Hamilton in on that Wednesday this year, where he spent the night in the hospital. Came in and rode that bull, in that morning perf, and then made an incredible ride. That night to win, only guy that makes a whistle. I thought that was a pretty gutsy effort. I'm a Billy Ettbauer groupie. I love Billy. To watch Billy on Cool Alley a couple of times, and the World Championships that he won. Dan Mortensen was spectacular. Those guys battling each other.
How do you rank Zeke? How do you rank Zeke against Billy and
Zeke
Dan?
Zeke is really something. He's just kind of, I call him the king of the North. I don't know if you're Game of Thrones fans, but yeah, and now he's the king of everything. But yeah, he's a cool customer. He's just so much fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, he's, I think the level of broncs that you see now, it's kind of hard to compare eras, because I think the broncs are so much different. I mean, I think if you watch the older NFRs, these broncs that they throw in there now, I think are they're a little deeper, and from first to 15. But Zeke's fantastic, and I'm a huge, like Dawson and Logan Hay and all those guys, and I enjoy watching the Canadians. And good grief, it wasn't that long ago there wouldn't be any Canadians there, for Pete's sakes. Lindsay Sears would be the only one.
Yeah,
she'd be like a couple times she was the only one there. She'd win the world when she'd come.
For a while. Yeah, it was
rough. But
well,
Fred versus Cody. I love those were amazing years. I actually talked to Fred today. I hadn't talked to him in forever. Fred versus Cody, and I like those rivalries because that's just that perfect one made the other one even better, and they just thrived off each other. What they win 10 out of 11, I think, tie down open world titles. And I saw Ty Murray, as he came in and won all of his all arounds. And he used to, when he would be injured and not compete the NFR, he would sit between me and Butch and terrorize the hell out of us. He'd pinch you. He'd write nasty notes to you. He and I would eat candy bars. We'd eat Reese's like in between stuff. But
No way.
Trevor Brazil was amazing. There's just so many of them. Cody Ole when he blew his knee out, and still finding a way to tie that calf. Those are all kind of out there. This year was amazing. He had that 3-1, and he had the 3-1 and team roping that got waved off, and then
Shad the same night.
Shad May 6-1, 6-1, and the calf gets out. So
yeah. Well, and even Haven, like I was saying to somebody the other day, it's cool because like this year's NFR, there was some really amazing thing. I think, again, we're not going to get down the road of the judging at the NFR, but Zeke Thurston riding Explosive Skies, like that to me is one of the best bronc rides I've ever seen. But there were some amazing things. And I said, it's cool to be living in an era where we get to see and get to have been part of rodeo and, been involved with the rodeos where Casey Field was competing and has become the greatest bareback rider of all time. And it's in our generation, in our time of being involved. So it's pretty cool for you to start listing off those memories and 30 years of some of the biggest moments and stars that will ever have competed at the NFR or in rodeo for you to see them. I was looking at, Lisa Lockhart didn't get her pro card until 1993, and you've been doing the NFR since 91. So you've seen her ride and compete at every single NFR that she's ever.
Yeah, she was this close to winning the world 2 years ago. She hits a barrel or she wins the world 2 years ago, and we were all just like rooting for her so hard to win. So she's so much fun to watch. Brittany Posey's horses were spectacular this back half of the rodeo season. You touched on Casey Field. I mean, he's just the GOAT, it's just incredible to watch him. And, I know he misses his dad. That adds to the story, in terms of the fabric of it all to do what he did. And, I did a bullseye with him, and he just talked about, the next year he went when his dad wasn't there. The first time he was there when Louis was gone, he didn't want to be there anymore, it sucked something out of him, but obviously he was able to put it together, find that motivation, and then set the record for go-around wins and world championships. But Mary Walker, man.
Oh yeah, Mary Walker. That was a heck of a story too.
It's an amazing story. That's a movie. Mary's a movie.
Yeah.
And I wish I had the means to do that movie because it's a movie.
For sure.
Well,
for sure.
You mentioned Kai Hamilton and how great of a story it was, and it makes for great TV. Pretty impressive what he did, honestly. I was in the building that night. It was the only perf I was at this year, and I saw what he did, and I was kind of like, I was just struck. I was like, oh my gosh, like he actually was the only guy to ride. Like it was, everybody in the building was standing up, and there aren't that many of those moments at the NFR, like very, very often, right? Like I've seen that rodeo a lot of times, and that it doesn't get like that very often. It was pretty remarkable. But then I look at it, and I've been wearing this hat the last few weeks because of Ty Posabon and thinking about the head injuries he sustained over the years and what happened. And I think I was one of the few people that was still sitting down at that moment because I was torn. I was like, this is great what he's done, but I'm also thinking like, shit, he was knocked out last night, and that might have been from getting hit in the chest, but he's still, it's probably an unpopular opinion at this point, but he still has a brain injury, but he can still get on a bull the next day. And that's still part of the issue with the format of rodeo and how there's no paid contracts. And, I'm happy for Kai, and he made his decision. He went and rode still, and he probably felt well enough to ride, but it's a bit of gray area. So like, I think it was a great moment, but at the same time, I'm like, this is not, some of it's not okay either. But I wonder what your thoughts that way are too.
Yeah, and Real Sports did a story on bull riders and concussions not that long ago, and I think it's amazing how easy it is to get a concussion. And it's just like a bruise on your brain that never really goes away. It's just so serious. But yeah, I hate, that's why I was scared to death for him both bulls. Both times he got on, I was like, man, you're just fresh off. We didn't even know what the result was, the night before, or he didn't move for forever,
Yeah. How long was he down
out
for? 'Cause
there.
we didn't get to see it. Like, I don't even
He was
know.
out for a while, that's
right?
for sure.
Yeah, we took a commercial break. So, I'm going to say 5 minutes in the arena floor.
Unconscious.
And well, at least to the point where he wasn't moving, Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The concussion side of it's tough, but you can't, yeah, it's hard to tell these guys no. When their livelihood depends on it, because they, and unfortunately on the downside, that's their motivating factor, is just gotta have something for Christmas.
Yeah. And it is like, we have this conversation all the time, and obviously with Ty Pozzebon and the foundation, and the conversation is always relevant here. And I mean, I think it is in rodeo and bull riding in general, but at the end of the day, the sport is still, you gotta, get on to get paid and ride to get paid. And there's varying opinions on how you would change that. The only way to really change it is to have guaranteed money, but at the same time, like other sports, then that chips away from the I guess intensity of it in some ways too. So I mean, that's a tough one, and it tells that story again of big difference between rodeo. It's the last remaining gladiator sport, right? And yeah, it's a rough one for sure. And then again, the fan base, but then how do we convince people to like get their kids into it and whatnot, right? And I think you're right when you say that, Jeff, about telling the stories and the money, right? So, well, Ted,
Got a couple more here. You were talking about golf. We gotta move on. I know it's kind of a downer when it's such a high point to go, and everybody's standing up in the arena, but I'm sitting down. I'm like, geez, I'm torn at this point. But okay, we talked about the golf thing. You golfed the other day. Who's the best? One of our editors sent this question in, Sean Morton. He's wondering who the best cowboy golfer that is.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Or is it you?
I played with Rocker. No, it's not me. I don't think. I played with Rocker Steiner in a tournament this fall, and was stunned at how small he is and how far he hit it. He hit it a ton, but he's a little inconsistent. Rocky Stiegel's a really good golfer. Shane Hanchy's really, really good. Shane's probably the best cowboy that I play with on a regular basis. But Hanchy's really good. He's a good stick, hits it a long ways, scores well.
What's he scoring?
You have to give him.
Yeah, he's
You
good.
have to give me. He can. Yeah, he can break 80. Yeah, he's got to give me some strokes if we're going to gamble.
Have you ever played with Nate Justice? Because he can golf.
I haven't. Is he good?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he can hit a ball, man, for sure. So
I bet so.
Okay, along those lines,
100 yards pretty good.
Oh yeah, 100 yards. Yeah. So before we wrap up here, along those lines of best cowboy golfer, having commentated with Butch Knowles for over 30 years, obviously you guys are best friends and have just done an amazing job. So my first part of the question is how did Butch, I think I remember he had a broken leg or something, and that's how he kind of got into being commentating at the NFR. But then from that question, if you can just tell us kind of how that all came to be with Butch, is then over the years you have had a lot of guest commentators, and then you have Trevor Brazil, you have Cody Ole, you have
Luke's doing a heck of a job.
Joe Beaver. Who are some of your favorite cowboys, or who you think like are actually great commentators that are cowboys? But the first question is, how did all that come to be with Butch being now a longtime commentator with you?
He did two more. He did two before I even got there. He did with Hadley Barrett. He was with Hadley Barrett and Randy Corley, and I think in '89 and '90, and they both smoked. So Butch sat between Hadley and Randy, and they smoked the entire time. And that almost killed Butch, probably just from secondhand smoke and no voice and everything down that line. So it's pretty funny. That's how times have changed. He was doing he got in helping do seminars, judging seminars, and a couple of the guys that were involved in the television were there at a seminar, and they heard him kind of breaking it down. They said, "Hey, do you think you can do TV?" And so they invited him, I think, to do the circuit finals first. And Butch said, "Nah," he didn't think he was going to do it. And Louis Field said, "Butch, that's the kind of stuff that you never know what it'll lead to." And obviously for Butch, he knocked that out of the park. And then they said, "Hey, come do the NFR." My first year was 91. Wintercom had just gotten it. And I was only supposed to do the regular season. I was supposed to do the Wrangler World of Rodeo tour with Butch. And then when we got to the NFR, a guy named Chris Lincoln, who was the marquee talent for Wintercom, was going to take over the host role. Butch would be the analyst, and I was going to be the sideline reporter. But by the time we finished the first season, and we got to December, the PRCA liked the chemistry with Butch and I enough that they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to change this up. We're going to leave these guys together." And thank goodness they did. So we joke, he's my work wife. He can finish my sentence. I can finish his. He knows when I'm going to stop talking. I know when he's going to stop talking. Very seldom do we ever step on each other. It's a wonderful 10 days that he and I have up there in the booth. It's great, and love the cast that we have. Everybody does a great job. Luke Branquino is really good. And Luke, I was listening to him do on-camera stuff, some of the pre-stuff for Calgary, and they're talking to him in his ear while he's talking, and unfazed, changes gears. Those are good. Those are hard TV skills to pick up, where somebody's talking to you while you're talking, and you can continue to not stop, not slow down, and just kind of keep on rolling. Love Janie Johnson. Janie's just one of my favorite people on the planet. Anyway, she's a sweetheart. Butch is fun. Joe B's really fun to do television with. He's an interesting cat anyway. So I tell people all the time that the show after the show is sometimes better than the show with Joe. When you go sit down and just have dinner with him, and he starts telling stories and the things he's done, and he's so transparent about the highs and lows of his life. He's a unique individual. Really enjoy him. I've done, man. You guys wouldn't know who Jack Whitaker is. He's a legendary golf broadcaster. You should Google him sometime. Amazing voice. Jack Whitaker is one of the gentlemen broadcasters of all time, really, in U.S. television. I did thoroughbred racing with Jack, and it was just in awe. I did a show with Jim McKay, getting away from the rodeo side of it. But I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of very talented people that are better than me, and would fortunately help pull me up close to their level. So I wouldn't drag the broadcast down, but yeah, it's been really fun.
I got to go back to Houston. How was the interview with George Strait? I never got that answer.
So much fun. It was so much fun. George isn't very big. He's tiny. I'm not very big. So, but they wouldn't let me freelance. I had to submit my questions in advance. They kind of told me what, but he came in and I said, "Hey, it's really not, my joke has been, he came in and he was kind of in awe of me, but he finally settled down and realized that I was just human and did a nice interview." But I think it was kind of the other way around. But I said, "I can't believe we've never met each other before." And he's like, "We've met each other before." I was like, "No, I think I'd remember. He's like, "Well, I think I just watched you on television so much. Maybe I felt like I knew you, but he watches the Cowboy Channel all the time, but super nice guy. And if he keeps fighting, if he doesn't give up, he may make it in country music. I know he's getting a little older, but if he just kind of hangs in there, don't give up. I think he might make it before it's all said and done.
If he could finally just write one good song, he'd be a
yeah. You're big time when you could sit down and do 4 hours of concert and still not sing all your number one hits.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of George Strait, this is since like all the stuff you've done over the years, who's the most famous person in your phone?
Oh man, that's a good question.
And will
Well,
they
Taylor
answer if you
Sheridan
call
probably
them?
right now.
Taylor Sheridan, yeah. That's a big
uh,
name to have in your phone, I'll tell you
Yeah,
that much.
holy. And do a partners on a show
Taylor
with.
Sheridan, Taylor Sheridan and Lyle Lovett are probably the
Oh,
two
wow,
most
love it.
famous people on my phone. And Lyle's the nicest guy on the planet. He is so nice. The nicest. And what's crazy about Lyle is if you like go backstage and you see him after the deal, and then you didn't see him for 2 years, and even though it's the first time you met him, when he would see you, go, Ted, Kynan, how are you guys? It's so nice to see you again. He like remembers everything, everybody. I mean, he's an incredible, incredible person.
Dang, where did you
You just
meet
don't
him at?
ask him about Julia Roberts. He's huge into reining horses and rein cow horses.
Oh,
I met him because he was buying horses from Carol Rose, and so I've done 2 or 3 stories with him. Love his music. I mean, his music, he's just a perfectionist.
oh wow.
His music is fantastic. Don't ask him about Julia Roberts. I always laugh. Like I was watching CBS Sunday Morning, and I was like, I just sat down and I was like, I'm just going to sit here and wait because I know that she's going to ask him about Julia Roberts. And I mean, about 3/4 of the way through the story, she asked the question. He shut it down in about 0.5 seconds, and then they just kind of went on. So, but yeah, he's a super nice guy. I spent the day with Morgan Freeman, really nice guy.
Really?
And this was back in the '90s when I was doing America's Horse. He had gotten into horses and trail riding when he'd done what's Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood.
Wasn't that
He
filmed up
started
here?
buying horses and stuff.
Yeah, probably.
So I went down, and he had a place just south of Memphis in Mississippi. Super nice guy, exactly the way you thought you would think he would be.
Really?
Obviously a great voice, super nice. Yeah, I mean, I you guys probably know Jim Pickens, who's plays, he's on Grey's Anatomy. Pick's a great guy. Love seeing him. I met a few of the cast from Yellowstone. I went up and watched and they were taping 1883 at the Stockyards, and I went up one night and sat in the tent and watched them. Billy Bob Thornton kill the same 4 or 5 guys like 20 times because they kept doing the scene over and over. Yeah, so that was fun. But Faith Hill sat down and talked to me, talked my ear off. And in those situations, I'm always just speak when spoken to. I wanted to meet Sam Elliott. He was, 10 feet from me, but I wasn't going to say anything, so I didn't get to meet him. But Faith just came and sat down, and
she's so
she was
nice.
super nice.
Like, I couldn't believe it. I got to meet her and Tim when they were the halftime show at the American, and first of all, they agreed to come and do their sound check at like 2 a.m. because we were doing the rodeo the day after the Global Cup for the PBR, so we couldn't get set up and get everything ready for them. So they're sound checking at like it was like 1 or 2 a.m. And they were so nice. I could not believe how nice they were. Like it was just yeah. I guess you kind of build people up in your head and don't think but they're just salt of the earth people. So, well, you've met you've met a lot of famous people. You've made a lot of people famous. So that's
on the broadcast.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, like it, and that's the type of thing that to me, when you talk about telling those stories or whichever, but the credibility factor that you've brought to our sport is to me has taken it to that next level. It has taken, and even I would say the Cowboy Channel being lucky enough to have you come work with them since 2018. I don't, and it's my personal opinion, Jeff, I don't think we would have gotten to where it is today without you, because you've brought that credibility factor to our sport, and you probably heard of them, maybe even met them, but in my opinion, it's like having Ron McLean be a part of a broadcast in Canada, and having done the Calgary Stampede, and he just brings that credibility, and people say, "Oh, Ron McLean, yeah, that's a real deal." And I think that's the same for you in rodeo. Is if you're involved in it, people just automatically know that it's going to be something legitimate and as professional as it can be.
Well, thank you. I always try to make it. My goal is to put it on par with other sports. I want it to look like it's the same quality as an NBA game, an NFL game, Major League Baseball game. And I don't I don't ever try to get in anybody's way. You know, I'm the traffic cop. That's all I am. I'm just trying to keep the conversation moving from here to there. And I take comfort in the fact that nobody cares about my opinion. So there's no reason for me to tell you what went right or wrong in that bronc ride or that tied down rope and run. And I would never stick my nose into barrel racing for 1 second because I don't want it chopped off. But, you know, it's just been fun. You have great commentators that you can just kind of, you know, just keep the conversation moving in the right direction. And it's a monkey can do what I do, to be honest with you. It's just been so fun to be in that chair for that long.
They might be able to do it, but I don't think they'd be able to do it as well.
Well, thanks.
But yeah, and it's, you know, I mean, we've had the pleasure of watching you for the last 30 years at the NFR and multiple major rodeos and sporting events, and personally just looking forward to what you're going to do next, because like I said, for rodeo, I think whatever you do, it's going to be all or nothing, and it's going to be amazing. So I personally am looking forward to it.
100%. Well, and I got to ask this too, because there's been some people in the broadcasting side of rodeo and bull riding where, like, for me, one example would be like a Craig Hummer. Like, I really like what Craig has done in the bull riding side of things, because he comes in and doesn't know the sport, but becomes an expert and doesn't have to wear a hat. You know, he doesn't have to wear a cowboy hat to be the broadcast, like the host job, right? He's the host job. Is that right, Jeff?
Yep.
So but he doesn't have to wear the cowboy hat, but he still does a really impressive job, and he brings the energy, because the energy, like he's got to hype it up and make it exciting a little. You know, he doesn't really have to, but by doing that, it makes it more engaging, I think. And I think what you've done, Jeff, and I don't know, but like, what's your experience rodeo wise before being part of the broadcast? Like, I don't know that side of the story.
I grew up on a ranch in southeastern Oklahoma. I rodeoed as a kid. Okay. I loved all sports. I played everything imaginable. I was an all-state football player in Oklahoma.
Oh, that's right.
But being 5'8", I wasn't going to go play college football anywhere. Hey, I met Craig Hummer the other day for the first time.
Really?
They actually came to Geronimo here. They needed to do some on-camera stuff. So Ty Murray and Craig came in, and it was really nice to visit with them. And he and I were talking about how we're kind of similar. You know, how we're trying to bring the sports broadcaster approach to how we do television, you know, and I really enjoyed meeting him. And I was laughing because Ty didn't bring the right shirt.
Oh, really?
So
Did
he was
bring the
texting
wrong?
me.
Oh.
Yeah, I said, "Hey, can you bring a couple of shirts?" And I was laughing when I came in. I said, "I don't have children's sizes in my closet," but we found a couple of shirts that worked for him. Thank goodness. But I really enjoyed meeting Craig, because we're always on the other, obviously opposite sides of the fence.
Yeah. Well, and
I thought he was Canadian. He's not.
Craig? No, but he's from the Northeast though. He has a place in. He's
like Ohio or something.
Yeah. Ohio.
Yeah, he lives someplace weird, but
he's got somewhere
in
Ohio too. I think he had a cabin out there, because he came to a couple of our events on the East Coast one time.
It may be Maine. It may be Maine.
I think it is Maine. I think he's a cabin in Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know
why I thought he was Canadian, but he wasn't.
Kind of.
We'd take him. We'd claim him.
Be Canadian. Yeah. He missed a good chance to be Canadian.
Yeah.
Jeff, what's one of the biggest blunders or biggest mistake that you've heard on, or this happened to you over your broadcasting times? Like there was one we heard this year where I heard you were calming Donnie down about the knock the dog shit comment out of him on with I heard that you calmed him down. He was back in the room a little nervous, but there's got to be a couple of blunders over the years and stuff that you said accidentally, or somebody did, or something broke down. You had to fix it.
They call it a blooper on TV.
Yeah, or it wasn't. Nothing's been as bad as the XFL running out of power or generator fuel in their fuel in their generators. But there's got to be something.
Donnie's was pretty incredible this year, and I know he got even shorter than he is. He was so upset. You know, when I talked to him afterwards, I was thoroughly entertained by it. I mean, I was like, and everybody was giving me a hard time because I messed up then too, because I basically said it was dead quiet or whatever in there. He hasn't moved, and I basically said it was dead quiet or something down that line. And they're like, why did you use that word? Yes, yeah. So, but we got off the air and I was like, did you guys hear what Donnie said? And they're like, no. And I was like, oh my gosh. But, did Donnie explain it to you?
No, I didn't hear the story.
We had heard
We just heard it.
Yeah.
He meant to, he started to say, oh, whoop the dog out of him. He said, whip the dog. And then he hits, and he thought the bull was behind feet were going to come step on him. So he's like, he whipped the dog shit out. And it was like, so he just said the word shit, just kind of in fear for Kai, basically. So, yeah, I mean, I don't, thank goodness, I don't think I'm on any of those blooper reels you see on the internet anywhere. Thank goodness none of those have happened. The one I get the most grief about from the guys that have been doing television with me a long time. And I've got it here, and I kind of refuse to pull it up. But we were in Tucson, Arizona, and Adriano Marias wins Tucson. He hadn't been in the U.S. very long. He does not speak English.
93 or 4?
Yep. And it was like his first big U.S. win. And so we're doing the Tucson Rodeo, and they're trying to figure out how to ask him a question. And so I'm gonna leave the bull rider's name out. So I won't put anybody on the spot. But a certain bull rider was there, and he goes, "Hey, I can do it. I met him down in Brazil. I was doing a bull riding school down there, so I can translate for you." So I said, "Okay." Ask him about getting your first big U.S. win. And he turns to him and he says, "How does it feel to get your first U.S. win?" We're all just kind of sitting there like, oh my gosh. No. And here's why my guys give me a hard time is I had him ask a second question. They're like, "Are you a complete moron?" And so
that would be great to see, wouldn't it? That would be great. You'll have to send that to us. We would never post it, but you should send it to us.
And eventually we had Adriana's wife who stepped up and said, "I speak some English." And so she was our translator. So the PBR was not the first group to getting translators for the Brazilian bull riders. We did that in the early 90s on the Wrangler World of Rodeo. We're way ahead of our time.
Yeah. That's great. Well,
what else we got, Kynan?
I don't know.
Bourbon. What kind of bourbon are you into?
I was telling my wife the other day, you could give me my choice of 4 bourbons and I wouldn't drink anything else. And it's all Knob Creek. Knob 9, Knob 12, Knob single barrel, and Knob 15.
Really?
I like Knob Creek. Sid Steiner gave me a bottle of Pappy 15. I had it he kept getting mad at me because I never opened it. So I opened it when OSU beat OU this year in the final Bedlam game of football. I was like, that's as good as it gets. And I stirred a lot of Oklahoma fans up, and we laid an egg against University of Central Florida the next week, and they were asking me what kind of rock gut whiskey I was drinking after that loss. And I was like, that's an easy answer. I'm drinking the good stuff because we still beat your ass the week before, and I'm still smiling. But the Pappy was really good. My wife is to blame. Diana got me off on bourbon. But I like, I don't really get caught up in the Blantons and those, but I like a hot bourbon. Booker's like 128, 129 proof. I kind of enjoy those. Old Forester 1920. So, but you could just give me a selection of, is that Booker's there?
It's only 125.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just curious.
But I say it'll either put hair on your chest or take it off, depending on what you got to start with. But I really enjoy Knob Creek, so that's my usual.
What about Scotch then? If you like bourbon, you got to kind of like Scotch. Not at all?
I don't think those two are related at all. Not even a close cousin, in my opinion.
Tastes like dirt.
That's the peaty stuff.
I'm the opposite. I'm a Scotch guy, and if you gave me a nice bottle of bourbon, I'd probably just put it up on my shelf as a. Actually, I do feel bad because
somebody did give you nice bourbon.
David Sharp and Sam Dunn sent me a nice bottle of bourbon after the first year we had the Wrangler Network cover the Calgary Stampede. And I'm not even 100% sure what it was called, but it had a racehorse on the top of it.
That's the Blantons. That's the thing everybody's all the rage.
Yeah. And it sat as a decoration. Maybe it's still somewhere in my house as a decoration because I just,
Oh boy.
can't drink it.
No,
Can't do
box it up and send it to me. So
I'll
yeah, and like
next time I'm gonna
I'll buy
see
it- I'll
you.
buy it from
Next
you.
time I'm gonna see you, I'll bring it with me, Jeff. And maybe
Resell it on eBay.
if you got a bit of time on your hands before your next project, you should just come up here and we'll go do a little skiing.
I'd love to come ski.
Teddy's
Yeah, I
a
need to come up and ski
snowboarder,
that
but
part of the world.
he's not bad.
You got some of the best mountains ever.
I am
up here.
afraid. I'm afraid I'll break a wrist if I try to snowboard. I like golf too much, so I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want anything in a cast before the weather gets warm. So, but I really like to ski.
How often do you get to golf in a year?
That's not as much as I used to. Probably more now. Once I went to Fort Worth, my number of golf rounds a year dropped dramatically.
Oh, I guess.
When I live in Tulsa, I play quite a bit more. I play with a group at Cedar Ridge Country Club. I call them the Deplorables of Cedar Ridge. They're a pretty fun group to play with. I play with them, and then we'll go to Bandon Dunes or do whatever. I played
Oh,
Kananaskis. I played Banff and it's Calgary Golf and Athletic Club. Is that what
country club.
Is that yeah, it's a fantastic golf course.
Yeah.
So much fun to play that. I didn't, and so
Very
It's
so
a bit gimmicky at times, but nice spot.
yeah. 2 years ago, because I had been there before, and Ian Allison from Spruce Meadows I'd been out there. We when Butch and I did in the 90s, we were up there and we would do our voice at Spruce Meadows. And so the day after we voiced, he took me out there to play. So I just, great country club. So like in Oklahoma or in the US, you can just call and say, hey, do you guys reciprocate? I'm a member at this club. And so I called 2 years ago, not this summer, but the summer before. I called and said, hey, I'm out here doing the Stampede. Do you mind if four of us come out and play golf? And I did not realize that golf courses, that's
Totally private.
kind of high end. Extremely
No, we
high
do
end.
not reciprocate. Sorry.
And they said, you have to talk to the head pro. So I talked to the head pro. He was wonderful. And he set us up. And we teed off like at 6:30 or something. Still got 18 holes in. No cell phones. He's like, you cannot let. I was like, so no music? He's like, no. He's like, don't get me in trouble here. I was like, no problem. But it was me and Shane Hanchy and one of my producers and then Rocky Stiegel. And we played there. Just, the golf course is really fun. So it's different.
Yeah.
I play at a place called Valley Ridge, and it's like probably 20 minutes from the Stampede ground. So if you're up again this year, I'll take you out there. Keno and I'll take you for a round.
Yeah.
Shane and Hunter and I played a place, is it kind of west of town where they were playing like a senior event or something?
That might
kinda
be
new.
Canyon Meadows, but
So it was really
that's
pretty
super
there.
new. Oh, you probably played Mickelson with Jeff Robson.
Yeah.
Mickelson
Yeah,
National.
That's exactly right.
That's a nice course.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a newer course. It's
Exactly
nice.
what
Yeah,
we did.
really new.
Yeah. Tough golf course.
I haven't broke 80 yet, but I was 80 the other day in Phoenix. So
Nice.
You're getting close, Ted.
closer.
Nice.
Getting close.
Closer. But
I started
I,
golfing. Ted started golfing with me. He couldn't even barely hit the ball. So
I
he's
was
come a long
really
way,
bad.
Jeff. He's come a
really
long way.
bad.
Yeah.
It's a bad habit. Let me tell you, it's
It
a bad
is.
habit.
But I love
No,
So
I've exchanged. I used to golf a lot, like 60
You've got
plus
a lot of
rounds.
golf
and
now.
I just fish. So it's no less expensive, I don't think. But
it.
no.
One more serious question before you go. We got to get your definition of cowboy shit before we wrap it up.
that's the cowboy shit question is, what is your definition of cowboy shit?
Yeah.
And I see cowboy shit all the time. It's when those guys, I can't remember the bronc it is, when Stetson Wright takes a bronc that's got its nose in the dirt, takes him anyway. It's kind of those gutsy efforts, Kai Hamilton, that's cowboy shit. That's a good question. I should have delved a little deeper into that because I see things all the time and I'm like, I like that because that's some cowboy shit right there. I'm just kind of amazed. I'll tell you what, that freaking pickup horse that Tyler Kraft has, that Blue Roan, that's cowboy shit right there. Those broncs are all at Clint Johnson's ranch in Canyon, Texas, and I would like to go out there and ride that Blue Roan. I would steal that thing in a heartbeat. That's cowboy shit. Horses don't faze me much. That horse, I watched him in Calgary this year. I was like, if I could get him in the overhead bin I'll be taking him back to Oklahoma with me on Sunday.
Oh man, I think you and everybody else that ever sees Tyler ride a horse, but that is one thing, not taken away from that horse, but Tyler Craft can make most horses look way better than what they are. So just be prepared if you do buy him, Jeff, that you might not look as good riding him.
I can guarantee I won't.
Pretty awesome for Tyler to get to the finals this year. Got to give him big kudos for being there. And you know what? Has there only been probably 3 Canadians ever to work that? Get him, Gary, and probably Wayne Vold back in the day.
Yeah, we were trying to think if there is more. I mean, obviously a pickup man would probably
guy.
maybe know, but yeah, Tyler for sure, Gary in the last 30 years, and then probably Wayne Vold, and I don't know if Winston Bruce ever picked it up or not, but those would probably be the best chances of other Canadians doing it. So pretty elite company. So
we've kept you probably way too long already, though, Jeff. And anything before we wrap it up?
No, it was great talking to you guys. So thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for doing this.
Call me anytime.
No, it was great. And like I said, we look forward to seeing what's coming next from you, and see you down the road somewhere. I'm going to Denver in January, but I don't imagine you'll be in Denver. So
hopefully it'll be something great, or I'm just going to buy a bourbon bar in Costa Rica. So I'll keep you posted.
I take off time to time with those crazy friends of mine. Head out on steel horses with wheels and we ride. We burn up that road to old Mexico, blend in with the desert, just we amigos and we roll. And cowboys like us sure do have fun, racing the wind, chasing the sun, take a long way around, back to square one. Today we're just outlaws out on the run. There'll be no regrets, no worries and such for cowboys like us.
Once again, this is Cowboy Shit, the podcast. My name's Ted Stovin. He's Dustin Edwards. Thanks again to what do I call it? Should I give Kynan a title yet? Is he an official co-host?
Call him official substitute utility host.
So like, is he like an e-bug?
Yeah, he's like the e-bug. Like from Jeff Metters to The Bachelor, he's kind of dabbled in different hosting elements. So,
well, and then what else did he host me? He was a guest a couple times, and then what else was there? I feel like Keenan's made a lot of appearances on the show now.
Yeah, honorary host,
honorary e-bug and host.
Yeah, he's our e-bug. I like that. So
thanks again to Kynan for helping me co-host that show. He's the one that lined it all up. Honestly, we got talking about a few different things, and Kynan was the one that got it all lined up. So kudos to him. He's I guess we got to call him e-bug / maybe agent / booking coordinator.
Yeah,
a few pieces to that, right? So
yeah, cool interview. And Jeff's I'd say an icon in the Western sports broadcasting industry, so pretty neat to have him on.
Well, in the back of your screen, we've got former guest Allie Price. Congrats on the engagement a while back, Allie. Special. What? It's almost like a scrum lurker post back there.
She's lurking.
Trying to make some supper. Sorry, yeah. I had to throw that in there. Anyways, I want to get back to the sports medicine spring training camp. So Brandon asked me on I think Thursday. The event was Saturday, or he might ask me Wednesday or Thursday. I have to go look back. But he's like, "Hey, can you come speak at this thing on the weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, I got I'm available. I could make that work, sure." So I hadn't really officially got back to him, and then all of a sudden I saw a post about meet our experts. And I was on there. I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm confirmed. Then I'll see you there." So then I had to come up with a plan on what to talk about. And I'd been to a couple things over the years about active learning. So there's a thing called OnCourse I went to back in 2009, and it talks about the students that learn the most are the ones that do something, and they're not just being talked to. So my mom had sent me to this, and it was OnCourse is a college professor course where the professors go and learn about the active learning side of things. So I'd done that, and I've been to a couple other things over the years. So I wanted to make it kind of interactive, and as interactive as I could with the students there. So my mom and I helped me, or my mom helped me build a program it was only an hour, but we had 3 different activities that everybody would do. So we talked about some goal setting, and the topic was the business of rodeo. So I broke it down into 3 different sections where I was talking about behaviors, where it was like different behaviors we could adapt, where it was, one of the things I do is some meditation. I do some goal setting. We talked about SMART goals and a few different pieces like that, and really making a plan. And then it kind of built on to the brand side of it, where what we do and say is our brand essentially, right? Like people know us as, that people. It was kind of interesting. I asked by a show of hands, like how many people already knew who I was, and I wasn't trying to like ask about an ego, but it was kind of like about the marketing side, where 6 of 12 kids or students at this clinic actually knew who I was already. So I was like, oh, that's, I guess some of the marketing I'm doing must be working. If the folks know who I am, if nobody knew who I was, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe I got to go back to the drawing board here and look at what I'm doing. But anyways, we talked about a few different things, the brand side of it. And then we did a few sponsorship kind of pieces where we talked about the different pieces to the sponsorship package, and then we kind of went through and they wrote down what they're going to do for their brand. They wrote down what they're going to do for as behavior wise. One of the students talked about getting on practice horses. There's a lot of bareback riders at this thing, which I was really impressed by. But they were talking about getting on a practice horse every week for the winter for like the next 3 months kind of thing. And then there's a bit more about the workout side of it and the eating right side of it. So it was neat to go through all that. But then we did the sponsorship part too. And I said, hey, like pitch me as a sponsor. Like I work for a few different companies, and any of which could probably be a sponsor and are sponsors of people. So, give me a pitch on different things. So it was really fun hour to be around there. And then I kind of it was in the gym at Acumen there. And then I got kind of interested in the workout side of things. And now I'm going to go see Brandon and them, and I'm going to go do a workout with them tomorrow. So try and improve myself for the new year too, a little bit.
Attaboy. Well, we were talking about goals in the last podcast. So
true.
Putting the talk into motion here, Teddy. Attaboy.
Well, we'll see. It's already what is it today? The 9th of January. So
yeah. Well, I credit Brandon for making that a component of that spring training. I think that's something, especially for those young guys that are there that are just getting started. I think that's some really good tools and give them some good framework for being successful as they develop physically and as a professional athletes, essentially, right? So
100%. 100%. One other thing I want to mention before the end of the show, Dustin. Today's January 9th, and it's been how long's it been now? Ty Posbon left us in 2017. So this is 7 years now already, isn't it? Today's at 8. I want to spend some time on that and just kind of talk about a little bit about what's happened so far with the foundation. Got to give kudos to the crew: Rusty Clooney, Tanner Byrne, Chad Bestplug's part of the board, Gord Broda, Brandon Grimard does a lot of our book side of things and a lot of the accounting side of it with Rusty at the Broda crew. But Leanne and Amy are doing all the merchandise side of things now. They're shipping all the caps and t-shirts and hoodies and sweaters and everything. They got all that on the go. So got to give a big shout out to them, and thanks everybody for coming out to the fundraiser event. But I think a lot of good things are happening with the foundation and have been over the years. But I go back to the Kai thing at the NFR and wonder about where we're at with it and what impact we're having at a higher level. I think one of the next things that has to change is at the association level, and for the different organizations to really make a stand and have some mandates and some plans and rules around this sort of thing. I don't think anybody's going to be sad that they can't ride after a concussion. Would have been really interesting for something to be in place for it before this Kai thing this year. So anyways, I just want to keep the conversation going on that, and maybe he's cleared, maybe he passes the protocol and maybe he gets to ride, but I just think that there should be more in place, and I think that there's still progress to be made.
Yeah, we do it at all the other professional sports levels, so why exclude rodeo?
Exactly. So I want to touch on that really quick before we wrap the show up, but always keeping Ty in our thoughts, and yeah, just got to live like Ty a little more every day, right?
Yeah, it's something cool that's continued to evolve and grow and for the better. So it what's been set out to be achieved by a tragedy has been doing a very good job of that with the foundation and the events and the awareness. So I'd say, credit everybody, all those people you mentioned, all the parties involved, and associations and sports medicine and sponsors and people that put on events that continue to have the conversation and what the foundation continues to do for the sport. So it's definitely not going backwards. Sometimes you probably want to, you want to see things like the NFR and Kai be done differently, but I definitely think there's been some great strides and you got to walk before you can run. But I think this has been pretty successful initiatives on what everybody's been trying to achieve in Ty's name and legacy.
100%. Dustin, what do you got coming up here? You're when do you head out on the road again? You're going to Vancouver maybe, and then what? What do you got?
Then we go down to Vegas for a little personal trip, watch some hockey down there, and just get a couple days to relax. So you'll be stateside as well when we're down in Vegas as well, I believe, right? You're heading to Texas.
Yeah, we're going to Dallas, and then we'll go to Phoenix for a while, and then I'm going to go back to Fort Worth for a little bit, and then come home on the 30th. Then I'll be slingshotted right into Red Deer. So we've got a lot of the shows planned out here for the next while. I guess we don't have a lot of them. Sorry, we got the next one. So stay tuned. Between Christmas and New Year's, Troy Dunn was over here for a school that he put on with Austin Beasley, or maybe Austin put it on and Troy was the coach. So recorded a show with those guys. That one was really, really awesome. A lot of cool stories in there. So that one will be coming up in 2 weeks from today. And then what else? Then we don't have a plan after that. So we got to figure something else out. But we're working on it. So anyways, enjoy everybody. Have a great stay warm out there. Thanks again, Dustin. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Awesome. Once again, this has been Cowboy Shit with Ted Stovin and Mr. Dustin Edwards. This is episode 161. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks to Sean Morton for his editing once again, and to the lovely Storm Defoe. She's probably still gonna be Defoe moving forward here. She's not gonna take my last name, but neither did my mom, so that's cool. What's your plan? What's your plan there, Dustin? Are you is Allie gonna be Allie Edwards, or is she gonna stay Allie Price?
She's going Edwards, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Breaking news.
Outstanding. Well, anyways, thanks everybody. We'll catch up with you in a couple weeks.
Amarillo by morning, up from San Antonio. Everything that I got is just what I've got on. When that sun is high in that Texas sky, I'll be bucking at the county fair. Amarillo by morning, Amarillo, I'll be there.